So what we need to do, we need to know the syntax first, right? And what is the syntax? What's the difference between methods and the function? Built-in function is like you can use over any data structure, like string, tuple, dictionary, sets, and other data structure. But when there is a method, that means this is basically a object type of things. Like, for example, string methods that can only be applied over the string. And the syntax is the data structure or the object. I told you in Python, everything is an object. So string is an object. So object dot the function name. I'm sorry, not the function, method. So though they are the same, but here we are using two different ways. Function for built-in function and method for the type, like object type of things, like object method, object functions. Okay. I already told you about different types of object methods. What are those? Let me open it. So here's the list of methods that we'll be using for this semester or for this course, but you need to know or you need to remember all of those methods. Or the first thing is like you can memorize all of the method, or you can use what? Google search or what function? dir. So this is a directory. So dir function, if you're using dir and inside the dir function, dir is a built-in function in Python. If you're putting this exact data structure or the object inside the dir, you will get all of the methods for that particular data structure. Like for a string, we can get all of the methods. So we don't need to remember, we don't need to memorize those things. But at least to work with some basic stuff, we need to know those things, like how you can convert uppercase, how you can convert lowercase, how you can remove the spaces, how you can split the words by some delimiter, how you can count the number, maybe how you can find the number, replace the value, something like that. You need to know those things like handy. Okay. So first is the removing extra spaces. Sometimes you'll see some extra spaces, like whenever you are working with file, you can see a lot of extra spaces or a new line at the very end. So you need to strip them out. And how you can do that? There are three functions basically. One is lstrip, which will remove the left spaces. There is the function called rstrip, which remove the right side spaces of your string. And strip is a function which can eliminate both left side and right side. So you can see here for the lstrip, we don't have any left side values. We have some right side spaces. So strip the left side spaces. For the rstrip, we remove the right side spaces, not the left sided. But for the strip, we can remove all the left side and right side things. So sometimes we need to remove the right side things. So for example, like whenever we're accessing a file, we're reading a line, and we know there are some new line at the very end of that line. So whatever the last character, I need to remove the right side things, like either new line or spaces. But I'm not worrying about the left side things. In that particular case, you need to use the R strip. If you're using strip there, probably you lose the left side things there, as the goal is to remove the right side things. But if you're using strip, then you are just removing the left side thing as well. Then string content, The character classification, this is really important for your project. You need to find out whether the particular character is a string or a digit or something else. So what you can do, if you use the is alpha is like it is alphabetical character. Is alphanumeric. Sometimes when you are creating a user ID, they are asking your user ID should be alphanumeric character. That means not necessarily alphabetical things. You need to add some numerical things as well. So you can check those things here using the alphanumeric function. Sometimes you need to check whether this particular character is a space or not. The function is a space, and this is very powerful thing, is digit. Whenever there is the numeric value, you can check those things using is digit. Now, for your project, which is the best function? Is digit, is alphanumeric, is alpha, or is space? Or all four? Is alpha? Okay, why? That means I'm actually worrying about the alphabetical value, right? So whatever the others, I don't need to worry about those things. So I don't need to check whether it's a digit, whether it's a alphanumeric or a space, right? That's why the alpha is fine. But sometimes whenever they're asking you like, well, you need to find out the numerical value, then you need to use the is digit function. But you can use all of those. So for particular one character, you can check all of those functions. First, you will check, is it an alpha? I'm sorry, is it a digit? If it is digit, skip it. Is it a space? Skip it. Is it other than alpha? Skip it. Is it alpha? Then you are going to convert it. Either way is fine. You can choose like all four function with like multiple if, or just use one single if and else. If is like is alpha, work with it. Is not, skip it. And how you can skip from a loop? Increment. Increment is like you are controlling the loop, but like how you are skipping current iteration from a loop. Continue. Continue is the keyword. Then you can skip the current iteration. So you can just write this way, like whenever I have this non-alphabetical character, continue. I don't worry about these things. Make sense? This is how you can connect your like weekly content with the project. Make sense? Okay. Counting the lines in the text. This is a function split lines, which is basically returns list. So since we are not covering list here, so I'm not going to tell you about these things, but whenever in week 5 or week 6 we will be covering list, we'll be working with split lines. This is the powerful function. Checking if a line contains a word. How we can check whether a particular substring, what's the substring? Part of the string, right? So if we have a line and we're trying to find a substring, for example, a name, I'm trying to find a name inside a line, how I can check it? Whether that particular substring is in the line. I already told you whether this particular substring is in the line. In not function actually, in keyword, yeah. In conditional. So basically it is like identity operator. So it will return you true or false. You can check the in things here. Not this one. I think it should be here somewhere. Checking the membership, like whether the science is in the sentence, whether the math is in the sentence, or you can use the not in, which not in. So if not in returns false, that means it is there, right? Negating is positive. Okay. find and replace, which is really an important method that we often use in industry. So for example, I'm just searching here something. How it works? It works the same way that you are working for the project, for the assignment. The find function, it takes the whole content as a string and then search for particular item. If it is there, put the highlighter on there. That's how it works. For example, I'm trying to search like escape. It search escape word from the whole content. Whole content is a string and escape is a substring that I'm going to search. Whenever it finds, it just mark the highlighter on that particular word. And it is case sensitive. Case insensitive, not sensitive. How it works? How the case insensitivity works? So I'm searching with the smaller e, but it highlights capital E. How it works? How can you implement on your, what's that? In the upper? Yeah, basically what it does, yeah, upper is the way, but basically it is doing the lower way. So whatever I'm searching, it is the lower, and whatever it is looking for, it convert everything to lower, or either way, upper. It converts to the upper and everything to the upper, so that it is case insensitive. Okay. This is the find function. Find this way. So one important thing is like if there are like multiple items in a string, will it find all of those or the first one? And whenever we're using the find function, what actually it returns. So let me write some code. Here's my string. I'm trying to write something like, okay, I'm here. I'm trying to find. Find is a method. That's why string one dot find. And what I'm going to find, maybe there is like multiple m. I am here m. Okay. I'm trying to find m. What do you think? What it will return? Can it find both m? Let me print it. So this is like find f. I'm just writing f. It gives you a number like the index of m, index of the starting position of m. So you can see here, this is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. That means it only finds the first occurrence of substring. How can I find the next one, if there is any? Well, if there is, if m is not here, like AMI is not there, right? What do you think? What will return? 0? -1. That means you can easily write this condition. If something find is -1, that means it's not there. If it is not -1, that means it's there, right? So 0 is the valid index, like the first index, right? So if our m is like very first one, it will return 0. And if it is -1, that means it is not there. So our valid index is like 0 to the end of the length, -1. Right? Now my question is how I can find the next m. So right now I'm getting the first m. Is there any possibility that I can find the next onward substring? How? Okay. So what I can do here, I'm just writing AM 23 AM 2. Okay. So this is my string. My string is AM 23 AM 2. This is my string. Okay. And since it's a string, I can access the string character by its index, right? So there are like another one, like 2, 3. Now, if I'm going to search M, it will try to find and match with this. And then whenever it matches, it returns the first index, 0. This is what it is returning right now, dot find function. Now my question is, how I can find the second M or next onward M's? I know it has like 2 characters. The length is 2, right? That means from 0 plus 2 up to 2, it is the M. That means after the index 2, we can search another M, right? So the find function is 2 parameter. The first parameter is the starting point. So by default, it is 0. So if you're writing find 2M, then it will return 4. That means I'm trying to looking the M after index 2. Does that make sense? Find the M so that way you start searching after. Yes. So if I'm writing a loop, like I'm trying to find multiple amps, I'm not sure how many amps are there or what's the length of the string. So what I can do, every time when I find the amp, I increment the index by 2 and add that index here. So that if it is like a long word or long sentence, I can find multiple substring there by putting this value. Like first I find this value 0, then increment by 2 the length of the substring, and then put this value here. And again, if it is like a 4 plus 2 is 6. On the next search, it will search from 6 to M. This is how you can find multiple substring. Make sense? Any question? Okay. So if I can write these things here, so what I can do here, for I in the range of the length of the string, and I will search for the let me find the first iteration. So first occurrence, I'm just studying FO as a first occurrence. So what I can do here, I'll start from first occurrence plus the length of the string until the length of the string. a little bit confusing, but don't worry about this. What I can do here, whenever I have the first occurrence, I will increment this one by m. This is my new value. So new search. New search point. And I will search for the str1 dot find and new search from new search point to the what I'm going to search m, right? And this is my next search point. So my new search point will be the next search point plus my new search point will be next search point plus length of m, and initially my new search point is this. That means I'm starting with this one. This is my new search point at the first iteration. Then I will search from that point and looking for m. I have the next search point, and then on the next new search point will be like on each iteration, I'm updating it. I'm updating by next search point plus the length of the m. So that if there are like multiple m, I can find the starting point of all m's. Make sense? Okay. The count function works like the same way. Internally, it counts all of the m's. First, like it is looking for those first index and the increment by that number. Whenever it finds, count it 1. You can implement by your own, but since there is like built-in method on the string, you don't need to. So the count function returns the count of the particular substring. So there are like 2 m's, it will return 2. But if you need to write by your own, then probably we need to write that way. Search from the starting point, go to the next one. Whenever we found it, we increment by 1. Okay, with the find, there is a function called like replace. Typically, we need to replace whenever we're trying to find. The replace function replacing that substring to the other one. So here's an example for the replace function. First, it is trying, so replace function, the first part is the finding part in the replace function. In the replace function, it tries to find that first phrase. If it is there, then it replaces it. So there are like 2 parameters, first one and second one. So the first one is we're looking for this. Second one is we're trying to replace with this one. That means the replace function, first part of the replace function internally, that tries to find it. If it is there, then they're trying to replace it. If it is not there, they're not going to do anything. Make sense? And again, with the count function, you can verify it, whether it is replacing or not. There's an example here. So the find, replace, count, and what else? Yeah, those 3 functions are related. To solve this type of problem, you need to use those 3 functions altogether or one or combination of those functions, methods. Make sense? Probably you will have one in lab. I don't recall when it is due, but probably there's a lab is like you need to find out email addresses from what is called, it's like a log file. You know the log file is? What is a log file? So log file is basically all of the so it stores all of the activities. So whenever we are working in networking industry or networking infrastructure, they're storing those information like which. So for example, you are logging in through some email addresses and you are trying to convert or delete some file, then they're storing those information as a log file. So they're storing those information to a log file. So sometimes as a security expert, we need to find those email addresses. So first you need to know the pattern of the email address. Then you need to find out what are the email addresses. So you need to use both find, count, and other things. Maybe the pattern as well. What is the email pattern? Domain name, username, domain name, right? This is the pattern. If you find this type of pattern, that means it is an email address. I'm just giving you some heads up. Probably it is due. I don't know when it is due, but somewhere, probably week 5, not 5 actually, 7 or 8. Any question about the string methods? So string methods are really powerful method whenever we're working with string manipulation. Typically we cannot, because string is immutable, but whenever we're manipulating it is returning a new string. So original string is there. We are not touching to the original one. We are just converting that string to another string. That's a new string. So if you can see here, if I'm going to convert the str1 to upper, then print this one. We're converting this one to the upper, but the original string is there. Original string is there. That means it is returning a new string. So always string method returns a new string. Keep the original as it is. This is the important things. And that's why string has the immutability property. You cannot modify the string. Okay, I think I have spent a lot of time in the string. Let's go to the function. Okay, what is a function? We already have used a lot of functions, right? The very first function was print, then integer. What is the purpose of those functions? To do something, right? The print function prints something to the console. Integer function converts something to the integer. That means the purpose of the function is to do something special for you. Now you already have used a lot of built-in function for Python. It's your time to write your own function. If I ask you, can you convert this thing to like cipher, for example, encoding? There is no built-in function in Python to encode. That means you need to write your own function. That's why it is called user-defined function. You are the user, you are defining that function. Or the other way, if I am the user, I ask you to do these things, you're defining that function. So there is various types of function. Built-in function is like given to that particular programming language. This is the built-in function. Then there are some object function like methods that I told you about, the string methods. And the other thing is like user-defined function. You need to write your own function. Okay, so whenever you're writing a function, you need to know the syntax, right? What is the syntax? Well, the keyword first. The keyword is def. Let me open the. Well, I already discussed the case sensitivity in the last class. Whenever you have dog and dog, they are same. You can convert it either lowercase or uppercase to check with the user's input, right? Okay, so here's the definition syntax of a function. First, the keyword def, then a function name. Function naming rule are the same as variable naming rule. Again, what is the variable naming rule? Is the convention. The rule is you can start with a number. You cannot write a space or special character there. You cannot use the keyword as a variable name, right? The same thing will be applied for the function name. You're going to start with a number. You cannot write a space. If there is a space, you can use underscore like snake case, or you can use a camel case. And then the important thing is like parentheses. So right now, keep it blank is because we don't have anything here. But later on, we will use parameter where we are just sending data while we are calling a function. But that's the next part. Initially, we can start with empty things like the parentheses. And then the colon. What does that mean by a colon? A new block. A block of what? A block of your function. And there you need to write the statements. And those statements should be starting from 4 space apart from the previous line. For example, like this. Now the function typically has two parts, function header and function body. Function header is the very first line, the def, the function name, and if there is any parameter. So right now we don't have any. And the function body is like after the colon, whatever you are writing inside the block of the code is the function body. It could be one line, it could be multiple lines. Make sense? One important thing is like, other than any block code, you need to call that particular block. Unless you are calling that particular block, it will never run. That means we have a room here, like this is 402, there is a room like 401. If you're not calling 401, it is keep as it is. We're not working with that particular room. We need to call that room, like open the room like that, then we can access that room. So in the function, whenever we're writing a function, it is as it is, like a routine. When we're calling only then like int function, we're calling the int function, then we're converting something to the integer. We're calling print function so that it prints something to the console, right? This is like a calling. Same thing here. We have our built-in function, we need to call it. If you're not calling, then it will not work. And the order is you need to call after it declared. You're writing the function. Yes, question? Yeah, we can do that. This is like a nest. Yeah. If it's a self, it's a different thing. It is like recursion things, but we'll discuss those things in week 11. Function calling function with the same name. This is called a recursion. But you can call another function from here, which is like a different types of function, but not today. Yeah, we can do that. So what we need to do, we need to write a function. It is as there, and then we need to call it. And make sure you need to call the function before it is defined. Defined means like we're writing the function, just like this. We have our function, then we need to call it. What happened? We write this code before this line. That means we're calling a function, it is not defined. There will be a syntax error, right? Like variable declaration. If you're calling a variable but it is not defined, you'll have an error. Same thing here. You're calling a function but it's not defined. What it does, it is looking for your user-defined function, built-in function, or data structure function. If it is not anywhere, then it returns an error. Okay? So function calling is important and ordering is also. Make sense? So let me write our very first function like this one. I would like to greet what I can do, I can just write two functions like add. Okay, it is adding two numbers. So this is the result, 10 plus 20, and this is another function called like subtraction, and our result is 10 minus 20. Okay, there are like two functions. One function for adding two numbers, another function for subtracting two numbers. It is fine. I can subtract from higher number to lower number. But unless you call it, it never works. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to print those values. Print the results. Print the result. And I'm calling. So when I'm calling, you see, I'm not writing the call function inside this block. I'm calling here, add. This is the calling, right? When I'm calling add, it prints 30. When I'm calling sub, it prints 80, right? 30 and 80. If I don't call it, it never works. It never prints anything. It never executes. That means this block of code will never be executed. If you're writing 1,000 lines of code, but without calling it, it never runs. So keep in mind, whenever you're writing a function, make sure to call it in an appropriate place. Okay. Now, if I'm going to convert our first project, what was the project? The first one was unit, right? Units maybe 1,000. Then crew was like 20. Then we are doing what? We're assigning 3 units to all crew except Mira and Top, right? From the units. So this is a crew. So this is our remaining, right? Okay, then units minus 3. Okay, then mirror share, right? Then top share. Then crew share. What is the mirror share? Mirror share was remain multiply 0.13, right? Probably 13 or 11, I don't recall. And then again calculate the remaining part. Remaining part is the remain minus mirror, right? And same thing for top. Instead of mirror, we can write top. And then percentage was 11. And remaining is remain minus top. For the crew, we are remain divided by crew, right? This is crew share. And I don't need to calculate the remaining here. The crew share will be this one plus 3, right? Now, can we rewrite this code with function? Yes, we can do that. For this mirror, I can write a function, def mirror share calculation, like a meaningful name, right? Calculation. Mirror. And it's the block of code. That means the rest of the code will be in the block, not the first one. And then top share, we can write def top share calc. Top share. For the crew share, I can write crew share calc. Three functions, right? But there's some issues. What are the issues? What? Yes, that's true. This is the first issue. Good. So we need to call those functions. Otherwise, it never run. Which one? Not necessarily redundant. What we're doing, we're just creating an organized code. In that case, you're saying it's redundant, but if it's a very long project, then it is not redundant. Since it's like 1 or 2 lines of code, that's why you're saying it's a redundant things. And then the crew share calculation, right? Okay. But I don't know what is the global variable yet. You're right, but in different wording. What's the problem here? So whenever we are writing any variable under a block of code, those variables is under that particular block. We cannot access those variables outside the block. That means I am calculating the remaining here, but I would like to use the remaining here again. No, I cannot. That's because the remain is a part of that particular function. Does that make sense? So that's why whenever we're using a variable inside a function, they are local variable. Now, what we're writing here, those two variables, they're not under any code. That's why they are global variable. We can access those variables from anywhere. But we cannot access the remain, what we have calculated here, from here. It's because this particular remain is a part of mirror share calculation. We cannot access that the remain from the top share calculation. Now, what's the solution? The solution is parameter. Right now, we don't have any parameter here. So parameter is like we can communicate with the function through some values, through some variables. Whenever we're sending some values, we can accept those values to the function. So when you're calling, we can call with the argument, and then here we are accepting those things as a parameter. Though they are the same wording, argument and parameter, but basically they are like variables. We are mapping this variable to that variable. So let me rewrite this, not rewrite, let me comment it out and write the add function. The add function, what we have written is like result was 10 plus 20, right? Instead of 10, I can write A is 10 and B is 20. I can write A plus B, right? And call that function. And definitely we need to print it. Instead of 10 and 20, we are using A and B. Now, these A and B are local variable. We can send those 10 and 20 through the function calling. This is called argument passing. We're passing two values to the function call. Now in the function, we need to use some holder to grab it. The holder is like those two variables, A and B. If there are like two, we need to use two parameters. So now, instead of 10 and 20, I'm sending from function calling and getting those value while we are executing the function header. Now the A and B are the local variable. Now I can write some global variable here, 10 and 20. Instead of 10 and 20, I can write A and B. Now keep in mind, these A and B are the global variable. These A and B are the local variable. Though they are the same name, but they're two different things. Let me use the Python tutor. So first it works with the function header. Nothing to do is because I know here is the function that I told you, like 41 is that room. Whenever someone calls 41, I can redirect them to there. So I need to know here's my function. That's why I have my function header. Then A is a global, you can see here, global frame, like a global variable, A. B is the global variable, 10 and 20. Next line is calling A and B function calling. When I'm calling add function, these A and B is under that function. So that means this AB and that AB are not the same, though they are the same name, but they are not. Does that make sense? This is very important. Variable scope, though I'll be discussing those things later, but at least function parameter, you know, those things are all related. So I need to cover something here, then later in detail. Whenever we're declaring any variable inside a function, they are local. They are under that particular function block. You cannot access those variable outside of that function. For an example, like a race variable, if you're trying to print race here, you cannot. You'll have an error here. Ouch. Race is not defined. Yes. Instead of what? We can do that. We actually cannot declare a global variable in a function, but yes, it's already been declared, then we can define it as a global variable inside a function. But yeah, I'll be discussing those things, the variable scope operator, maybe week 6 or week 7. But those are like advanced concepts. But we can do that. But right now, if we're declaring anything inside a function, it is local. Outside of the function, it is global. That means we cannot access the local variable from a global variable. Now, there's like one-way communication. When we're calling a function, we're sending data to the function. Now, the function is like producing something, right? Like our function producing, adding 2 numbers. Can I just get the production from the function to our function calling? Yes, I already told you about the return type. I told you the return, it returns, the input function returns a string, right? This is the first thing. The input function returns a string. String dot something like upper returns a new string. That means we need to return something from a function so that we can grab it. Let me rewrite this code. So instead of printing race, I can return from here. And then since I'm returning, I can hold with something like, here's a different variable like addition, for example, or added number. Is that? Oh, okay. Add is a global frame. A and B are in a global frame. A and B is still, not still actually, A and B are local frame right now. They are pointing, this A is pointing that A, this B is pointing that B. But they are not the same. They're just pointing. Now another variable race. Race is a local variable, right? It is returned. That means whenever we are done with the function calling, that means the function operation, it returns something with the return statement. This is another important thing whenever you are writing a function. Always return something. Otherwise, it returns none. Previously, we just printed, but we didn't return. So just print it. So added number, grab that value, the returned value. Now it is 30, we're printing 30. Now, what if we don't have anything here? We don't have the return. AB, calling the function A and B, the result is 30. You can see result is a local variable, but it is returning none. That's because we are not returning anything. So by default, it is returning none. Now the added number will print none. Which one? This one? Yeah, we can do that. So instead of AB, we are just writing print AB, this one. Or here. Yeah, we can do that. In that case, we are not grabbing the value, just throwing these things to the print. Though it is returning whatever the value we're throwing to the print. That means we don't have any temporary variable here. That can work. Yeah. So whatever the value it is returning, basically returning none, it will print the none. That means return is the must thing in a function. Otherwise, it will return none. See, even if your function is working perfectly fine, but it will return none if you're not write the specifically return statement. Now, what is the basic things of a function then? Function is the procedure which will do some specific task based on the instruction. It will take the input, returns the output, right? Just like any program. But it's a sub program, like add function, a subroutine. You're sending two variables, it will add and return the result. That means we are not supposed to write, like print anything inside a function. What we're doing in a function, we grab the input like a parameter, process it, whatever the value, return it. We're not going to print anything here. So print statement is not a perfect one unless you are debugging some code. We can use print for debugging purposes. Whether so it's certainly call that function, how long it works. In that particular case, you can use the print for the debugging purposes. But when it's a deliverable code, do not print function inside the function, like print statement. The reason is the user-defined function or any function, like for example, like in function, if you're getting some print statement there, like, well, you are adding, so you're trying to convert 32.5 in an integer. If you're seeing those things, probably you'll be overwhelmed, right? Instead, you are getting some value or error message. That makes more sense, right? Now, whenever you are writing user-defined function, you need to use the same fashion. I have those input, I will process it, produce the output. That's it. I'm not going to print anything here. I'm not going to get any input from here. Don't use the input function inside the function. It should be in a different function. A function task is to do some specific task. Maybe small task or bigger task. Like in our case, we're adding two numbers. In our project, it can be some other task like calculate mirror share, calculate top share, right? Now, if we'd like to modify this function, I cannot access the remaining part from here. So what I can do, I can return the remaining part, right? Now, when I call that function, I know remain after Mira. Whenever I'm doing the calculation, it returns the remaining part, which is like remain after Mira. I'm sending that value to the Mira. This is like top share. In the top share, I cannot access the remain. So I can use the remain here. So that this remain will map the remain after Mira. Same thing, I can write remain after top and use that value to crucial calculation. I can use the same variable or a different variable. That means as a first run, I need to know the remain. So this is the remain, a global code, right? I can access the remain here, then calculate whatever it is, the remain, it returns. So Mira share calculation here, it returns this. It grab with the remain after Mira. On the next run, the top share calculation, I'm sending that value. And in the top share, I'm accepting with a different variable name, remain. But this remain and remain after Mira are mapping each other. They're the same thing. They're just mapping two variable. This is the local variable, and this is like function parameter, but they're just mapping. Now this remain will work as like the value. We're calculating and make sure we're returning the remain. The top share calculation, we're getting the remain after top share. Then we're just sending that value to the crew share. In the crew share, this remain and top, remain after top are the same, just mapping each other. And make sure we're returning. I don't need to return anything here. Maybe the crew share. But sometimes we need to know more items. Like for example, here, I need to know the Mira share as well, right? But here I'm just returning the remaining part. So what I can do, I can return multiple items using comma separator. So remain and Mira, I'm just writing Mira share. Same thing here, remain and top. We can use top and top share. Same thing here, the crew share. Now the next task is to print. So for the Mira, I can use the F string. Mira will be what? Mira share plus the crew share, right? For the top share, they're the same. For the crew, yeah. Right? Here. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. Yeah, it's an error. I cannot locate the remain things here. Okay. Ah, okay. So in this one, I don't have the basically this remain is that, but it's okay. I can call the remain from here. These are the global code. Though the crew is not right, is because the crew share plus 3, right? Yeah. So this is like a functional programming. Okay. Now the thing is like I need to get the input and output, right? I told you do not use any input and output inside a function, just the calculation. That means I have to have another function, which is like a main function. So I need to write a function called like main function. And then instead of those two, I can just write those things here using the input. Same thing for here for the crew. Right? So this is our input and this is our output, right? And this is our function calling. So we can just use this. We need to convert these things to an integer. Definitely need to convert those things to the integer. And whatever the remain, sending remain, but do you have any crew here? Have you used the crew? Here's the crew. That means I need to use the crew as another parameter here for the crew share calculation. And that's it. And finally, I need to call the main function. Get the input 1020. That means whenever we have a user-defined code, we're writing those things. At the very bottom, there will be main function. In the main function, the inputs, the outputs, and the functionality. In this functionality, we're just calling the function. Here we are calling function within a function, but not the same name. We're calling function from the main function. Any question? Sorry for keep you waiting for another 1 minute. But is it more organized code? That's what I'm expecting for project 5. You have more organized code. Encoding function, decoding function, get the input from the main function. So here's the project, the program structure that just I have mentioned. You have a docstring I'll tell you later. The import module, utility function, like the user-defined function, main function call. So just like this. This is our user-defined function. These are our user-defined function. This is our main function. And then we're calling the function. So that's what I've written here. Our user-defined function, 3 function, the main function, input, output, and the functionality and the main function call. Okay? Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry for keep you waiting.